So today was my second week of classes to begin the spring semester of my third year at university. Just for context, I'm a business management major with a concentration or pursuing a business management degree with a concentration in entrepreneurship. And this semester is very special for me because I'm officially enrolled into the business school. I mean, prior to this, the prior semesters to this one, I had to complete, all my GE requirements and all of my upper division general education requirements and any extra classes that I had to take to fulfill my graduation requirements. So now I'm able to strictly focus on business courses as a whole. And I want to talk about one class that I am currently enrolled in this semester that I think for the most part, I'm not enjoying as much as I thought I would. And granted, look, it's only the third day of classes or the third time that I've taken this class so far, because it's just the beginning of the semester. So I'm going to give the professor and the course the benefit of the doubt, right? Maybe a week from now, I may feel entirely different. But if I'm going to be entirely honest with you, I don't think so. So this course that I'm taking is entrepreneurship. That's what the course is literally about, which is entrepreneurship, or at least I thought it was. And I'll explain what I mean in a second. The professor for this course is very nice. So despite what I may say in this video, I'm not throwing shots at her in any way. I just don't think that kindness and sweetness always translate to competency, especially when it comes to the personality of professors, right? Because a professor can be nice and very sweet, right? But that doesn't necessarily make them competent enough to teach a course on the specific subject that they've been assigned to teach. To provide some quick context as well, this professor of mine, she's an entrepreneur, and she's a very, let's say, outspoken one, if you know what I mean. And, from the first day of class, I kind of, was a bit skeptical about taking this course initially, although I was excited because I thought to myself, how can one teach entrepreneurship as a course, right? Because entrepreneurship isn't of itself a very it's not a course that you can teach per se. It's something that you can practice. It's not like management practices, or it's not like finance, or it's not like accounting, right? It's something that there's no course material for entrepreneurship, right? It's a practice. It's a lifestyle in of itself and a job. So heading into it, I was a little bit skeptical as to what the course material for this course was going to be on. And, I'm taking this course at 8 a.m., right? So granted, you can imagine that, I don't like to have morning classes. I prefer to have afternoon classes, but this slot was the only one available for this course. So I just said, you know what, you got to do what you got to do. Let's do it. And this professor is very enthusiastic all the time, right? At 8 a.m. in the morning, very enthusiastic, very energetic. And for someone like me who, I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty cranky in the morning. That's my fault, right? But, I'm sure other students feel the same way as me too. Like, having a very talkative professor, too talkative, in the morning and very, I guess, loud can be exhausting. But that's not the point though. But the point is that she's a very sweet professor, and I'm not throwing shots at her in any way. I'm just providing my honest thoughts in order to answer the question and title of this video, which is, should you attend a university in 2025? Right off the bat, I'm just going to say it depends. It's all circumstantial, right? And I'll explain what I mean right now. So this course that I'm taking, it's the third time that I'm taking this class for the spring semester. The third day of this spring semester for this course. And we are talking about law of attraction and quantum mechanics and trauma, right? And you'd think that in an entrepreneurship course, you'd learn about the logistics of what it takes to successfully run a business. For example, I don't know what goes into entrepreneurship really, like LLCs and, mentoring, networking, what platforms to use, how to find your wealth profile, how to find your niche that you specifically want to build a business around, right? You'd think that that's what an entrepreneurship class would teach you. You'd think that's what a professor for an entrepreneurship course would teach you, when in reality, this professor that I'm having isn't teaching us that at all. I can't lie to you, I am pissed off, and I'm starting to think that this course is a big waste of time for me. But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt because it's only the third day of this course. And things could change. I had our class this morning from 8 a.m. to 9:50, and we're talking about trauma for pretty much the entire class, trauma and grit. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is not productive at all, to me at least, right? Because you'd think that when you're in an entrepreneurship course, you'd want to get to the nitty gritty right away, like, help me find my wealth profile, as I've mentioned. But we're going on the basics of mindset and law of attraction, quantum mechanics, as she so passionately talks about and how it's helped her in her own life. I'm sitting there thinking to myself, what is the point of this? Why are we learning about mindset and trauma? What does trauma have to do with being a successful entrepreneur, right? And while, there are some parallels as to how, trauma can impact your success in being a successful entrepreneur, I just don't think that it's very productive to specifically dedicate a whole class to trauma and grit, right? Talking about grit. I mean, these are things that I think we've all learned about in middle school and early high school, right? I'm a third year college student, and I'm pretty sure everybody else in my class is a third year as well. Oh yeah, they have to be, because you have to be, either a second year or third year to be in the business school. And we're all sitting there. Now, this is not only me too. We're all sitting there and we're all wondering, what are we going to learn about material of substance, right? That can help us become successful entrepreneurs, right? And keep in mind, this professor that's teaching this course is a successful entrepreneur herself, or at least that's what she says. I'm going to hold her word to it. But, you'd think that for someone who's a successful entrepreneur, you'd think that she'd get down to the nitty gritty and just be as realistic and real as possible. So why am I saying this, right? Why am I providing, my thoughts and feelings about this course, right? I'm providing my thoughts and feelings about this course because one of the main things that I've noticed when speaking with younger individuals who are in high school, or people that I've come across, right, who have, younger brothers or younger sisters who are about to graduate from high school, as I once did, who are contemplating on whether or not university in 2025 is even worth it, right? And that's a very good question, because I don't think it's all circumstantial, as I've mentioned, right? But to say that you have to go to university to be successful, I don't think is true, especially in today's day and age, unless you're entering the field of law, or at least from what I know, unless you're entering the field of law or the medical field or anything STEM related. I don't believe that university is required or necessary, especially if you're a business student like I am. You do not need to go to university, as far as I'm concerned, to excel in business or to start up a successful business. And today's course made me realize that. I mean, I'd known it all along, but today's course especially made me realize it. And I'm sitting there the entire time thinking to myself, what an effing waste of time all of this is. I could be spending my time doing something else, like, for example, actually working on something that actually can yield massive value and reward for me, which is this YouTube channel, or to read self-improvement books, or to learn about various topics on my own. Because I think we can all agree, right, that we can all learn about grit and law of attraction and quantum mechanics, or whatever she said, metaphysics, I don't even know what she said, on our own. Like, these are things that, we have accessible thanks to the internet. And we're sitting there, we're watching a TED Talk on grit from, I forgot what her name was on TED. I think it was Angela Lee Duckworth or something like that. Anyways, if you look up TED Talk on TED Talk on grit on YouTube, right, and it's the video with the Asian lady. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be racist. I'm Asian myself. So, that's the best way I can describe it. And, it's a great TED Talk, right? Great TED Talk, but very basic principles, right, that I could learn about easily on my own. After class ends, I talk with two of my buddies who happen to be in that class as well. And the three of us agree with one another that the class has been a big effing waste of time so far. And listen, somehow if this video gets into the hands of my professor, I just want to say that I'm not throwing any shots at you, as I've mentioned before. I just think that I have a right to provide my own opinion, whether or not you agree. That's entirely up to you. And that applies to anybody who's watching this video right now, right? Like, you don't have to agree with what I have to say, but at least I hope I can give you another perspective to ponder over. Three of us just chatted up, right? Talking about how much of a waste of time this class has been so far and how really disappointing it really is, right? Because why are we discussing topics that pertain to entrepreneurship? And these are things that we've been taught about in middle school and in high school. Grit, right? We talked about growth mindset too, and fixed mindset, the difference between the two. And the crazy thing about it too, right, is that near the end of the class, we did an exercise, individual exercises, where the professor had us fold a paper. On one side of the divided paper, we had to write all of our limiting self-beliefs, and on the right side, write I am affirmations. This is very subjective, this is very personal, right? Nobody has to agree with me what I say, right? But I think, it was a waste of time. I'm just saying, right? For me, I'm someone who wants to get into the nitty-gritty right away. And after the class ends, we talk about the exercises that we did and the whole class time dedicated to mindset. And we all agree that it's been a big waste of effing time so far. And we're all equally disappointed in the lack of material, the lack of substance that we've gained so far as to the ins and outs and the logistics of how to become an entrepreneur. And as I've mentioned, right, I stand by my statement when I said that I don't think it makes sense to have an entire course dedicated to entrepreneurship. As I've mentioned, I don't think entrepreneurship is something you can really teach. I think it's something you can talk about for a little bit, right? But to teach in of itself is different. It's not something that you can teach like finance or accounting. And we're talking, the three of us, and we're just talking about how what we've learned so far, it doesn't even apply to entrepreneurship at all whatsoever. I get the growth mindset and the fixed mindset. Totally understand that. I get the grit, right? But even then, though, those are things we've learned in high school, in middle school. And then the trauma part was something that was really off-putting, that I found to be extremely silly and a complete waste of time. The professor, and listen, I know this sounds messed up to say, right? But I'm not throwing any shots. I'm just being very honest, right? The professor, God bless her soul, she's very nice, but she puts up a diagram, 2 diagrams on the projector. And it's 2 diagrams of, the anatomy of the human body, right? And the title of the slide is trauma points or something like that. Trauma points on your body. And while this may or may not be true, right? I talked about with my buddies saying, like, why are we talking about trauma points on your body and how you can release trauma in certain parts of your body and whatnot, right? And she talked about how she had trauma from a young age, which I felt very bad for, right? And I'm not discrediting her testimonials at all in terms of what happened in her personal life at a young age. Not discrediting her at all. But she talked about how she released trauma from her elbows and how if you tap your wrists, you can release trauma. And the entire time I'm just thinking to myself, why are we doing this? This has nothing to do with entrepreneurship whatsoever. And you all can agree with me when I say that we've all had one teacher, or maybe a substitute teacher, as silly as that may sound, or just people that we've been around, right, who we've expected to help us, but when they say they help us, they haven't really helped us at all. They've just been spewing bullshit, essentially is what I'm trying to say. And there's nothing more frustrating than being around people like that who essentially waste your time, right? And time is a very valuable commodity. It's definitely of scarcity as the older you get, because you have more obligations and more responsibilities. So as you can imagine, as a third-year university student, right, who also has a heavy course load this semester, I want to get into the nitty-gritty right away, and I want to learn right away. And I know it's only the 3rd day of class, but it's true. I just want to get into the nitty-gritty right away. And we're sitting there and we're learning about, she says, all right, class, I want you to raise your hands, right? And I want you to tap your wrists. It's an exercise, right? Tap your wrists. Tap your wrists and take a deep breath. Exhale. Inhale. Hold it, that, right? While tapping your wrists. And she's like, I want everybody to do it. I want everybody to do it, right? And she said, this is a trauma releasing exercise. This is an anxiety reducing exercise. I'm just thinking to myself, what the fuck are we learning about right now? Like, what are we doing? In all seriousness, right? And I'm sorry for my language, right? I'm trying to get better at that. But I'm thinking to myself, what are we doing? And every student can agree with me when I say that there's nothing worse than having a teacher or a professor who wastes your time. I mean, specifically speaking as a university student, right? Most people pay an expensive amount to attend these courses, right? And to have these courses be a complete waste of time where at the end of the semester, God forbid, if I don't take anything of substance at the end, but for everybody else, right? People pay a lot of money to attend these courses, to attend these prestigious universities, or to attend these high-ranking universities that supposedly offer world-class education, to completely realize at the end of it all that most of the shit that I've learned, I could have learned on my own. That's a very angry thing to realize, because you put yourself in over, these prestigious universities require you to pay a lot of money, right? Pull out a lot of loans if you can't afford, to pay them off, right away, right? And some people have mommy and daddy's money to pay for school for them, while other people have to work part-time jobs, right? Most people have to work part-time jobs and have to be, entirely self-sufficient. And, to have a course and to be in a university that just completely wastes your time, and to be enrolled in a course specifically from that quote-unquote prestigious university that completely wastes your time, and have a professor that doesn't realize the nonsense behind what she's saying, it can be pretty aggravating. To answer the question on whether or not university is essential in 2025 is a bit tricky, because the answer, according to me, is that it's entirely circumstantial, and it's based on the individual who's contemplating on whether or not they should go to university, their personal circumstances. It entirely depends on that. If you're able to go to university, right, and have mommy and daddy pay for it, which I've come across some people who are in that case, right, to have their parents pay for their tuition. Listen, I know, some people take it for granted, right? While some other people, they feel bad for making their parents pay for their tuition. But if your parents are very insistent and want you to attend university, I don't see anything wrong with it at all. I say be grateful, and to really, really make the most out of it, both socially and academically, but especially academically and professionally. But if you're someone who is thinking about whether or not they should go to school, go to a prestigious university, and what that prestigious university is, in California, Cal Berkeley or UCSB or something like that. If you go in there for business, right, and to pay over $300,000, to be over $300,000 in debt, or to be over $250,000 in student debt, I would say think really long and hard about it, right, and really ask yourself, is it necessary for me to go to a top university to learn about business for the sake of learning about business alone? Or can I learn this information about business on my own from online resources, which are easily accessible, right? And if they have to pay to access them, it's a lot cheaper than attending a prestigious university and having to pull out loans. I'm going to use myself as an example, right? I'm very fortunate enough to live by a state school, and where I can commute from home, right, and live at home and not have to worry about expenses and not have to worry about rent and whatnot, which I'm extremely blessed and fortunate. But there are other people out there who are not as fortunate and blessed as I am, right? And I think it's majority of college students can say that, right? Because college students, generally speaking, are pretty broke. They don't make a lot of money, right? Outside of their part-time jobs. And even then, rent is very, very high today. Grocery prices are high, energy costs are high, and when you combine that with the stresses and the pressures that come from school, not a good combo at all. So this is my final answer, right? Should you or should you not go to university in 2025? Number one, it depends on your circumstances, personal circumstances. Are you living at home? Is the university close by? Number two, what is the subject in which you want to pursue your degree in, right? If it's anything STEM related, medical related, or law related, or anything that requires a degree, Yes, I would say university is something that, I mean, you have to if it's required, right? But if it's something like business or gender studies or a degree or a field or a career or a field that you want to work in that doesn't require a degree for you to be successful, no, I don't think it's worth it at all. Specifically speaking, as a business major, I think if you're in that category, I would say that university is only worth it for the social aspect and the networking aspect, which is very valuable too, very valuable. But I think it's about weighing your options, right? And I think that, for me personally speaking, I go to a state school, which is generally cheaper from what the research that I've done than a UC school, right? Whether it's a lot cheaper, I don't know, but it's cheaper from what I know. And for me, I had to weigh the options because I had, you know, other options in terms of where I could have attended, right? Not that many options compared to these very intelligent kids that I went to high school with, but I had some options. One of them was in San Francisco. And I thought to myself, I said, the idea of living in San Francisco sounds okay. I mean, fun. I mean, it's the city, right? I mean, a young individual living in the city or near the city sounds fun, sounds promising, right? I could grow a lot as an individual. But to incur those expenses, those high expenses of living in SF, rent prices, grocery prices, transportation costs, and then you combine that with room and board and dining hall, it's too much, right? Just for a business degree. Or I can go to the state school that I live by and live at home, rent free, and save a lot of money, but at the expense of, I guess having that quote unquote social life that a lot of seniors in high school, that a lot of high schoolers look forward to when attending university. So life is all about trade-offs, right? And when it comes to answering the question of whether or not attending university is even worth it in 2025, I believe that it comes down to, as I've mentioned before, personal circumstances, identifying what your personal circumstances are, and then pairing that up with, okay, is the degree that I want to get from this potential university that I want to attend, is it valuable in any way? Do I need it to get into the career or the desired career or job field that I want to be in? And number three, one of the biggest ones, and I think the first two reasons revolve around this last one, is it's about weighing the trade-offs, right? And people don't realize that life is all about trade-offs. It's all about trade-offs. Trade-offs are, you can never run away from trade-offs. You do one thing, you give up your time for another. Right now, for me making this video, this is purely prioritization, right? This is what I wanted to do. This was the main objective of the day, aside from my homework. But this is important to me because this is a business that has the potential to yield me massive rewards and for me to communicate with a large audience and to help a lot of people out there, right? Who may or may not benefit from my advice given, who may or may not benefit from my advice and Ohm's advice given. Those are the three reasons, right? And I know that I could have approached this video in a more organized and structured manner, but I had so much on my mind that I think that it was very difficult for me to sit down and put it all onto paper. And, I just wanted to keep this video short and simple and sweet. I kind of went on a rant. And again, to my professor, who I hope does not come across this video because she will probably hate me and put a check mark by my name with a side note of saying, fuck this student. I don't like the student at all, but you know what? I'm just providing my honest advice and feedback on what I think at least. But I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt considering it's only the third day that I've taken this course so far. But anyways, I hope that any of you who may or may not come across this video benefit from what I have to say. And the last thing that I want to emphasize, and perhaps the most important thing I should preface all of my videos with, is by saying that I am only 20 years old, right? There are people who may or may not come across this video who've had way more life experience than I have currently. And they could even be younger than me as well, because age does not always equal maturity and age does not always equal life experience, but it generally does. And I just want to emphasize that I do not have all of the answers to life and that I'm as flawed as each and every single one of you are. I am extremely imperfect and I am learning. And if I'm going to be entirely honest with you, speaking as a third-year college student, one of my main worries is whether or not I will be successful and quote unquote accomplish the American dream in life that is heavily depicted in these movies. And especially given the economic landscape of today, it seems like that reality and dream is becoming harder and harder to obtain. But I do know that, in times of struggle and in times of adversity, there's major power in being able to connect with others through that adversity, right? Because sometimes, for me, going through times of darkness, especially after losing my dad recently, which I've outlined in my past videos, it's had its cons for sure. I mean, I definitely was depressed, but the pros of it revolved around me being forced to reach deep inside myself into finding a reservoir of strength that I didn't even know was there in the first place. And, that is why I'm still learning, and I don't have all the answers to life, but I do know that, I can provide what I've learned so far, at least. I saw a comment to a YouTube video the other day, right? From under, I think, I forgot who the YouTuber was, but I saw a comment underneath this video, and it was a self-improvement YouTuber, and the comment was, this guy acts, it was like a hating comment or like a critique comment saying, this guy acts like he's been around the block. This guy acts like he's been through it all in life. When in reality, it doesn't matter whether or not this person has been through it all in life. If this person is giving you advice, right, you have the option on whether or not you want to internalize and accept that piece of advice. Nobody's forcing you. Right? You have the choice to. So to make a comment like that, which most people do, right? Because believe it or not, when you try to give advice to people and help people out, especially in today's world, they will look at you like a weirdo. When all you're trying to be is just a good person and trying to help them avoid the same mistake that you made in the past. So again, just wanted to say that at the end of this video and say that I don't have all the answers to life, and I don't have a magic pill to cure all of your problems in life. But what I can do is share with you the lessons that I've learned, and then maybe they can help you out if you apply them. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope to see you in the next one.